There. Okay, welcome. Thank you all for coming out to tonight's meeting of the Peoria Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm going to start off by taking roll. Commissioner Brian Patterson.
Present.
Commissioner Bill Lewis.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Outluski.
Present.
Commissioner Jeff Nelson.
Present.
And Commissioner Mitch Bolnick, Commissioner Clay Alsop, and Commissioner Lee Strickman are absent. I'm Commissioner Sean Hutchinson. I'm going to start by reading an opening statement. The Commission is composed of Peoria citizens who have been appointed by the City Council to serve on the Commission as a civic responsibility without compensation. Our duty is to study and review planning and zoning issues within the City of Peoria and then forward our recommendations to the City Council. All hearings are conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. Each case is brought and called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. In the interest of maintaining a fair and efficient hearing, the Commission adheres to the following steps. The chairperson calls the case. Staff gives a brief report and recommendation. Applicant gives presentation. The opposition and support give testimony, generally limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Applicant may give rebuttal and Commission discussion and decision. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant on my left. And please be as brief as possible and do not repeat statements already made by others. Anyone wishing to protest the decision of the Commission public hearing item must request a second public hearing before the City Council. The request must be submitted in writing to the Planning and Community Development Department within 10 days after the Commission's hearing. All Commission recommendations on public hearing items move forward to a regular City Council meeting. The City Council will then act on the recommendation of the Commission. They may concur with the decision, modify it, or overturn it. We welcome citizens' comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation. So this will be the final call. If you would like to speak on any issue, please submit a speaker request form to the planning assistant down at the end of the dais. First up tonight will be the consent agenda. The consent agenda is for items that are routine in nature, and they consist of 3 items tonight. Item 1C is disposition of absence, discussion and possible action to approve and or excuse the absence of Secretary Jay Outluski from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on June 1st of 2007. Item 2C, which are the minutes, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission held on June 1st of 2017. And item 3C, which is CU 16-0031, the Peoria Animal Hospital. A public hearing will be held to consider a request for a conditional use permit to allow a veterinary clinic within a newly proposed 4,747 square foot commercial building located at the southwest corner of 89th and Peoria Avenues. Are we having that public hearing tonight on that?
Mr. Chair, yeah, the Peoria Animal Hospital 3C is on the consent agenda.
Right. Okay. Well, it said a public hearing, so I don't know if we'd have to open a public hearing for it. So that's what's said on the agenda.
Unless it's pulled, it'll just remain on the consent agenda.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, do any commissioners have any questions and or comments? All right, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of consent agenda.
All right, moved by Commissioner Patterson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Nelson. Please vote. Okay, the consent agenda passes unanimously. Excuse me. We're now going to move on to new business, and under our new business tonight, we have one item, 4R, and that is PR 05-55A.3, Marathana Baptist Church Site Plan Appeal. Public hearing is going to be held to consider an appeal of the decision issued by the City of Peoria on April 25th of 2017, excuse me, sorry, to approve a site plan amendment for the proposed building addition of 3,626 square feet within the existing Marathona Baptist Church property. Staff, could you give your report, please?
Chair Hutchinson, members of Commission, good evening. My name is Randy Proch. I'll be presenting tonight's item 4R. It is PR 05-55A.3. This is Maranatha Baptist Church, a site plan appeal. This project is located just north of the northwest corner of 95th Avenue and Olive Avenue. Maranatha Church itself owns the entirety of the property you see before you, including the currently undeveloped portion between the church and Olive Avenue. The request this evening is an appeal of the City of Peoria's decision made on April 25th, 2017. That was an approval of a site plan that allowed the construction of a 3,626 square foot addition to the existing classroom building that's highlighted in the center of the picture. The appellant this evening is Marilyn Bland. The address of her property is just north of Maranatha Baptist Church. It is also highlighted in red. The applicant for the original proposal is Daniel Estrade, and he represents Maranatha Baptist Church. The site is zoned intermediate commercial, which is our most common commercial zoning district in the city. Religious institutions such as this are principally permitted in the C2 zoning district. The site itself is surrounded by a myriad of zoning districts, including multifamily residential RM1 to the west, PC1 to the east, PAD with a commercial underlining zoning district to the south, and R16, a residential zoning district to the north. This addition is considered an amendment to the previously approved site plan, which was PR 05-55A2, which was processed at that time administratively. Each of these site plans are always subject to appeal to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The original application description was an expansion of the classroom building. I will highlight it for you in just a moment. The addition will take up an area that's currently used for landscaping and an outdoor play area. It's not shown on the plan on this side. The proposal is what is highlighted in the hashed area. This landscaping removed from the site will be replanted in other areas. There are trees and shrubs. Anything removed from this space will be replanted in other areas of the site. There is an existing outdoor play structure, a swing set, that will be removed and will not be relocated. This will be permanently removed from the site. The expansion is highlighted in red for reference, at almost the exact middle of their property. It should be known that this expansion doesn't change anything else on the site except remove the existing landscaping. So drive aisles, parking lots, sidewalks, everything remains as is. This doesn't affect any of that. Now, this campus was originally constructed in 2006. It's approximately 10 years old. As noted, this is case 8.3, which means there have been two previous amendments, 8.1 and 8.2. The first was an expansion of the parking lot as they are growing in size in their congregation. Now, the second amendment was a smaller classroom addition in this same area that did not take up the entire space. That site plan was approved, however, they never went forward with construction. As far as public outreach goes, we sent our notice of application and notice of decision postcards in accordance with our noticing procedures for site plans to all residents within 300 feet of the site and HOAs located within 1 mile. We did receive one email of opposition during the time of review. Our decision was rendered on April 25th of 2017 by all reviewing parties of the City of Peoria, and an appeal was received within the appeal time frame, which is 15 days from the time the postcards are sent out. That appeal was received on May 9th, 2017. Since we did receive an appeal, we again notified residents within 300 feet and HOAs within a mile of a notice of hearing for tonight's meeting. There were 4 overarching concerns that the appellant has brought up. The first being noise concerns that have generated from the patrons of the church. The second is the traffic congestion on 95th Avenue. It is important to note that 95th Avenue, even though it is a half street, is served by a traffic light. Third was overgrown vegetation near the appellant's property in the northwest corner of the church property. And there was some concern and confusion regarding if this additional classroom space would be an educational center or a school that would act independently of the site. We have offered the following responses regarding that, and we will go into each specific concern in the slide that follows. Appeals of site plans are limited on whether the site plan conforms to our zoning ordinance and all relevant codes that are associated with that. This proposed addition, along with all buildings that currently exist on the site, do meet all zoning ordinance requirements regarding setbacks, parking, design, drainage, grading. Additionally, this addition is an ancillary use to the religious facility and is allowed in this zoning district. The use itself is not in question this evening. Specifically regarding the 4 concerns that have been brought up by the appellants, the first being noise concerns. Now, this use and all uses in the city of Peoria are subject to all noise ordinances, which are through the city code. Regarding the traffic congestion possibility of this expansion, the expanded classroom space is for patrons that are already going to the site. They did provide a traffic impact statement, which was reviewed by our traffic engineering department, that did meet all conditions that the 2 driveways that do exist on 95th Avenue are able to handle any additional square footage of classroom space. Regarding the overgrown vegetation, the maintenance concerns that are occurring on Maranatha's property are not part of our site plan approval process scope. And regarding the educational component, this educational space is an ancillary use to what already exists at the church today. It will not operate independently, or it won't be sold off at a later date to some outside entity. It's part of Maranatha Baptist Church. One of the other things we brought up and looked at in our review was regarding the existing play structure that was there. And we were informed by Maranatha Baptist Church that that wouldn't be moving, and that any noise that's being generated currently from that play structure with children would be gone with this inclusive area that's now being taken up by classroom space. Our request for you this evening is to uphold the approval of case PR05-55 8.3 based on the following findings. This request is consistent with the City of Peoria zoning ordinance and compatible with the uses in the surrounding area. And this use, subject to the conditions of approval contained within the approval letter that was included with the staff report as Exhibit D, will operate in a manner that will not negatively impact the adjoining uses. Staff recommends that Planning and Zoning Commission take the following action: to uphold the approval of case PR05-55 8.3, subject to the following 1 condition. The development shall substantially conform to the approved site plan, Exhibit E, as contained in the approval letter, Exhibit D, both included with the staff report for you this evening that was dated for April 25th, 2017. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Okay, are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Atlusky.
A couple of quick questions. Let's see if you can answer, and if not, if the applicant's here, maybe we can. Playground being removed, now, are we not going to have a playground in the future?
Chair Hutchison, Commissioner Atlusky, at this time there are no plans to construct any further play equipment in any other part of the site, no.
Okay, is there, and maybe we'll go back to that plot, but is there room or grassy areas near the residential that could be used for that, or is it parking lot over there?
Commissioner Lewski, there is a parking lot, there is a gathering space. I'll go backwards in the presentation to show you the site plan again.
I guess I'm just looking for, could they run over there and do it afterwards? Not run over there, could they do it there?
I would defer to the applicant to confirm. I do not believe there's any grass at this time. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, there is an existing game circle, which I believe is for ball play, but I'll defer to them as well. And there's some shade sails just for outdoor gathering.
Okay, and do you know the number of classrooms this will increase?
I would defer to them as well. This is specifically, I know, for adult classrooms, as the remainder of the building is using for children's space.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Commissioner Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Randy, the staff report mentioned a question about on-site retention, if it would be sufficient to accommodate the additional runoff from a structure of this size. Has the applicant provided any documentation yet regarding the off-site retention?
Chair Hutchinson, Commissioner Patterson, yes, Engineering Division of all of site development does review all site plans when they come in. Because this area was not used for any retention previously, it was flat and just simply landscaped, the addition of this building space does not affect anything else on site, so existing on-site retention basins are still sized correctly.
Any other questions from the commissioner? All right, with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is the applicant present? Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Daniel Istrate, architect of record with Contexture LLC, 3334 North 20th Street, Phoenix, Arizona, 85016. Chairman Hutchinson, members of commission, as it was stated, the addition of the 3,626 square foot are going to be 6 classrooms. They're Sunday school classrooms to be used during the service, which there are 2 services on Sunday morning, 8:45 and 11. There's one in the evenings at 6 p.m. and then also on Wednesday at 7 p.m. So those are the times that the classrooms will be used. And again, as stated, there are not to increase capacity. It's used basically for the kids to be dropped off while the parents are attending service. The playground that was there has already been removed and has not been replaced anywhere else, and there's no plans to be relocated anywhere else. There are also 2 trees that have been that will be removed from the landscape area, and the trees, along with some shrubs, will be relocated elsewhere on the property. And then to address, there is already an existing sports court that's on the upper northwest corner. That's there. It is existing. It's staying there. There's no change of use to it. The playground is not moving there, but it's not a grass area. It's just an area that the kids can play on. Like I said, other than that, if you guys have any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you. Just a brief question. So, if this goes forward and it's approved and the classroom is built, that's going to be for children to go in there during services when the parents are attending in the church part?
Yes, you're correct.
That's the primary?
Is
Is there any other use projected for this particular classroom?
Not that I know of. There might be an occasional church having a gathering or meetings where they need to break down into smaller classroom, but the primary, and I'll go and say as far, probably 99% of the time of the use is as classroom for children while the parents attend a service. So no, they've been designed as spaces for the kids.
And so the activities that will be taking place will be indoors in this classroom, not outside?
Correct. It's all indoor. For example, on Sunday morning, the parents are going to come in, park their car. That's why there's no increase in parking. It's the same members of the congregation. They'll be parking their car, dropping off their kids. Obviously, everybody's going to want to keep their kids inside, especially in the summer. They drop them off. They go for an hour and a half to service, and then they'll pick them up when it's done. So they'll be doing just children's services while the parents are attending regular services.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions for the applicant, the commissioners? Okay, thank you. We have two speaker request forms that we'll be addressing. First we have is Daniel Istrate.
That was the applicant, I was just.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure if I needed to do one or not, but
Okay,
that was.
so there was no other. And then we do have another one, Paul Bland? Bland? Do you wish to speak?
Yes, I do.
Okay, could you please come down to the podium? And same thing, please state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to under 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Paul Bland, 9134 North 95th Lane. I live directly behind the church. We have had very, how would you explain it? It's been very disrupting having the church behind us. Wednesday nights, the kids are out there, and now it's moved to Thursday nights, and it's so loud. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work. These kids are out there until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Okay, we had said something about the trees, because they don't trim the trees. Okay, we love the trees, they're beautiful, but they don't take care of the trees. We end up with all their leaves in our pools, we end up with all their branches and stuff in our pools. I've replaced several pool pumps. So here, not too long ago, they contacted us, tell us, oh yeah, we're gonna come back there and trim the trees. All of them. Yeah. The 4 trees behind our house, they just took chainsaws to them and hacked them and left stumps sticking up over our fence. Because we opposed this. This was out of retaliation because we opposed them building this. In the past, they've done construction there, and they've done it at like 1:30 at night, woke us up. Didn't have a noise ordinance. I went over and asked for a noise ordinance. Asked our good old Peoria police to provide us with the noise ordinance. No such noise ordinance was ever presented to us. Okay? This has just been one thing after another. It seems like I've contacted the church before about certain things, and it's like, well, you know, it gets brushed under the table, you know? And it's just been one thing after another. I don't feel there's enough access, especially once they build the QT across the street, because I've bidded on it. I know it's going to be built. Once that's put in there, the traffic there is so bad when they have their services, we have to go out the other direction because we can't get out on 95th Avenue. We have to go down to Peoria and get out. Okay? They don't have any concern for the other neighbors. They have all that property in front of the building that sits there and grows weeds in it. Has light poles that have never been used. It's just sat there for years. I've lived there for 6 years now, and it's never been used. Why can't they put in another entrance off of Olive instead of directing everything out 95th Avenue? You know, I'm sorry, I don't care. I wish they would move the church. I don't think it belongs in a residential area. I think it should be moved completely out of the area, to be honest with you. I'm a little bitter about it, sorry, but that's the way I feel about it. You know, they've been nothing but a nightmare for us. Yeah, and as far as the playground, it's still there. There's kids still out there. They were out there last night. You can hear them till 9 o'clock at night. There is still a playground out there. It's not gone, you know? And in 2015, they tried pushing this through, and it was a daycare. How do we know this is really for adult classes? How do we know this isn't just another way of them trying to get around to get their daycare in there? You know? Come on.
Okay.
I'm not stupid. I know how the game's played.
Okay, appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does the applicant have any rebuttal?
Yes, we just want to address a few of the questions that were brought up. I guess the first one is the fact that there is no Thursday night service whatsoever at all. So the services are as I stated them. There is on Wednesday at 7 p.m. that ends by 8 p.m. The trees, obviously, as we heard, there were complaints that the trees were overgrown. So what the church did is they do, by the way, have a landscape maintenance company that come in does trim the trees. So they did trim them, and then, as you're probably all aware, every now and then the trees, when they get trimmed, sometimes you got to trim them back in order to reform them. So that does happen, obviously not all the time. To address the light poles to the south, the property to the south was purchased 3 years ago. Probably some of you were aware. The property was owned by, they were going to do a truck car wash back in 2005, 6, and 7 during the boom years. Whoever had owned the property went ahead and they were going to dig wells and put all these huge light poles on it, and obviously they abandoned the project, never went through. And then the church purchased the property. So they purchased with those concrete barriers on it. They haven't done anything with them, but they came with the property which they purchased 3 years ago. And then also just to state that, obviously, as you are aware, in order to run a daycare, you need to apply for proper permits. The church has not ever applied for any permits to run a daycare. Again, I'll just reiterate that it's being used as a Sunday school class for the children while the parents are attending service.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no.
Okay, seeing no other speaker requests, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'm going to open it to the commissioners. Any commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to address that daycare issue. It was touched on by the property owner's representation, but would they require a conditional use permit? Would it have to come back before the commission if they wanted to operate a daycare center, or could they do that on their own?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Nelson, as Randy had stated earlier, this is an intermediate commercial zoning district, and what that district permits as a permitted use is not only a religious institution, but also ancillary classroom space. I believe within the C2 district, a daycare use would require a conditional use permit.
Thank you. Commissioner Atluski.
Randy, just a quick question, I guess, to address a couple of the issues that Paul spoke of, the traffic. So we have 2 ways in and out of the parking lot, correct?
Chair Hutchinson, Commissioner Atluski, yes, we do. To the right on the site plan are 2 entrances and exits off of 95th Avenue, yes.
Okay, and he mentioned the QT going across the street. Well, I'm sure we've looked at that. Will that substantially change the traffic patterns there to affect maybe an ingress, outgress, regress, outgress of the traffic from the church, is having that there?
Commissioner Atluski, so certainly on Sunday mornings, there is a mass of cars that leave at the same time. Cars come into a church sporadically. To address QT specifically in their site plan, since they were coming to a very vacant area that was nothing, so site plan and CUP, they did a full traffic impact analysis, which created 2 driveways onto Olive Avenue. One that is near the western boundary of Maranatha Baptist Church. I could pull the aerial if you can hold on. If you can follow my mouse, please. There is one right in, right out driveway here that has a pork chop median to restrict any further movements. The full access driveway lines up with the residential driveway to the townhouses here. Additionally, QT has one entrance off of 95th Avenue to the south of the light.
Okay.
With QT specifically increased in development, there will be new studies at the timing of that traffic light to see if adjustments are required.
Yeah. And I know from being on Happy Valley, sometimes during the day, it's going by CCV, it is a little crowded there also. I just wanted to make sure, because Paul mentioned that the QT might change it, and it doesn't seem like it's going to change it much because of that division.
That's correct. So
Okay.
this classroom space is to address patrons that are already arriving and need to put their children somewhere instead of in the congregation hall.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Otluski, I think a couple other points to make too is that, again, tonight, we're talking about an amendment to an approved site plan, the site plan that has already been constructed as a church use. So we're looking specifically at the addition of about 3,600 square feet of classroom space. So in that regard, in the site plan amendment, the staff, which included our traffic engineering group, not only looked to ensure that we have adequate parking, that the circulation and traffic movements continue to be adequate, and they've determined that they've continued to be adequate. And then if I might, on a separate point, just to note, because there was a concern about noise, the city has a noise ordinance in place that applies to all properties citywide, whether it's a residential or commercial property. So there are certain noise standards that would apply to that. And so if there's any question about any unusual noise activity, certainly the neighbor could contact our code enforcement division to address that.
Yeah, it was going to be my next question was about the noise. And I guess I would just outwardly recommend that, when we get to 8:30, 9 o'clock, it'd be nice to be quiet and allow the residents to not hear that. I think that's all I got. Thanks.
Actually, I have a question myself. So, do we have any record of noise complaints from the surrounding neighborhoods on record with the public safety?
Chair Hutchinson, staff did not personally pull police records to determine if there have been previous noise complaints at this property.
Okay, Commissioner Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the noise, what we'd say the breakdown is of the problem being the playground versus the sports courts that are closer to the residential property.
Chair Hutchinson, Commissioner Patterson, I would have to defer to the applicant to determine how they're handling outdoor activities. Knowing the site, the area between their outdoor gathering space, if you can follow my mouse again, the ball court in a sense, in the sail panels, there is a natural buffer that is used by residents of the townhouse project as almost a preferred pedestrian path that's well traveled. So we're not sure if these are patrons of the church that are causing the noise complaints or just members of public that may live in the surrounding area.
I guess my thought was, would there be any benefit in relocating the sports court further away from the residential?
Commissioner Patterson, that certainly could be a question for the applicant as part of a separate request, but I remind the commission that tonight we're here to discuss a site plan amendment. So the scope of that amendment is the addition to the existing classroom space and whether that addition does it continue to meet our codes and ordinances that we have in place. The existing sport court is already part of the site, so if there was some interest in the applicant to move that or to help ameliorate the conditions with the neighbor, they could certainly continue that. They could certainly continue that conversation, but that would be outside the scope of the site plan amendment.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions? Well, before we take a vote, I would like to state I am a little concerned about unintended noise that has been generated by allowed expansion of the church's operations. Very, very close proximity to several neighboring houses along the north side of the property. Is there any chance of future expansion of if the churches would like to expand operations? Could those operations go south? I mean, I'm looking at the property, and I realize we're here only to look at this, but I'm just wondering if we do this, how much further out do we allow for the church to go north? But I'm real concerned about that. Any other questions from the commissioners before we take a vote?
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
I'm kind of being pulled apart here, trying to understand what direction we're going with this, with the comments and questions. The scope of what we're looking at tonight is an appeal on an existing site plan amendment, correct? It's already been approved, and this is something that's been appealed. when we're talking about an existing playground area, baseball field, whatever that happens to be over, that's something that's already in existence. I'm not sure how that's tied to what we're looking at and being asked to vote on tonight. The question that I was most concerned about the noise. When I read this whole thing, I was concerned about the noise too. I live in a neighborhood near a very large church, and I know what that's like. That's why I asked the question specifically, is this going to be indoor? What we're voting on tonight as a classroom, is this going to be an indoor thing, or is this going to increase outdoor activities? And the applicant said it's strictly going to be indoors, which to me kind of settled, for me anyway, the noise issues. Now, there may be existing noise issues, and there's obviously some dissension between a neighbor and the church that I would hope that you guys would be able to somehow work out some of these differences and all be good neighbors and all that. But the scope of what we're looking at tonight, I think, is more specific and limited to the impact that this classroom will have on the neighborhood. And I just don't see the noise issue related to what we're being asked to go on tonight, unless there's something I'm missing here. I don't know.
I'm seeing it the same way. The exception I'm taking here is the fact that it will generate more people. It will generate more activity. It will generate more. And this is why we have an appeal process, because we considered it under one set of circumstances, and tonight an appeal was generated for circumstances that I personally probably didn't consider before. And that's my basis of what my consideration.
I just don't see how this will generate more noise. To me, this is taking a playground that's already outdoors and putting the kids indoors. That was my biggest issue, that any existing issues that are there on the property really are not within the scope of what we're looking at tonight. I think they may be good or bad neighbor issues that need to be worked out perhaps. But anyway, thank you.
Did we have any other commissioners who want to speak? Commissioner Patterson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I brought up the issue of the sports court was if the playground goes away, there could be more pressure for the kids to make more use of that court area. So I guess that was my concern, that you could move the issue actually closer to the residents.
Okay, is there any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion on the, now we are voting, just to be clear, we are voting to accept, we're voting on the appeal, to accept the appeal and to deny. A yes vote would equal denying the continuation of the project.
Chair Hutchinson, members of the commission, you're voting tonight whether to uphold the decision of the city to approve the site plan. So a yes vote would uphold the city decision to approve the site plan.
Okay, is all the commissioners clear on that vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, with that, I'll take a motion on the,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I would like to make a motion that we uphold the Planning Division approval for case PR 0555A.3, subject to condition 1 as outlined in the staff report.
I'll second that.
okay, it's motion by Commissioner Lewis, seconded by Commissioner Lusky. Would everyone please vote? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, with that, we are going to move on to the call to the public. Are there any comments from the public on non-agenda items? Any calls from the public on non-agenda items?
Yeah, how do I appeal that? Who do I have my attorney contact to appeal this?
You'll need to contact the city for that information.
Sue the city to have this shut down?
You'll have to contact the city. Okay, seeing no other comments, reports from staff up next.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, in terms of the reports from staff, just wanted to let everyone know that the July 6th meeting is canceled, and to everyone to have a nice 4th of July. We're not sure whether we have a July 20 meeting yet. We'll know early next week, and so we'll let the commission know if we have items for that date. Couple other things I wanted to let the commission know. The city has gone through a process to completely reorganize and update its city code. So to date, the zoning code has actually been a separate separate and distinct from the city code. So through this effort, the zoning code is now part of the city code. That action was taken last Tuesday to adopt all new provisions in the city code. And what that does for us is it reorganizes our city code, or our zoning code. It places it within the city code. So I just wanted to let the commission know that early part of the summer, we'll get you all a brand new code. None of the provisions have changed. No substantive changes have occurred. It's just a matter of changing the citations and the organization of the code. So I wanted to let the commission know about that. And then secondly, we don't have a slide here, but in terms of the Peoria General Plan, you all know we're in the middle of updating that. We just concluded our second round of community meetings last week. One of the things that we've done since then is we've pushed out a second survey. We have a website that's www.peoriaplanaz.com. And so in this second survey, we're asking respondents to offer their input on neighborhood design issues. So I encourage you and all the viewing public to go to the website and offer your opinion on that. That survey will be live through the 4th of July weekend. And with that, that's all I have tonight.
Nope. Okay, do we have any reports from the Planning and Zoning Commission? Yes. Commissioner Aluski.
Well, two things, really. First, I'd just like to say if the Peoria Leadership Institute was just completed, Tuesday night we were at the City Council and received our certificate, and we made it through it. It was an awesome program. If you guys haven't been through it, or if you haven't been through the Peoria Institute Leadership Program, it's definitely worth doing. I learned a lot about the city, things that you kind of know about cities, but then when you start digging into it, you start learning just how much more there really is to a city, especially a city our size. So I just would, it'll come around again next year if you can do it. It's 9-10 weeks, a couple hours in the evening, well worth it. And they feed you good too. The other thing, a question, I guess, Chris, the sign ordinance in Peoria, where are we at with the sign? Can you speak to that a little bit?
I certainly can. Commissioner Hutchinson, members of the commission. As you know, we've been on a year-long process to update our sign ordinance. We have a near final draft that we've made some tweaks to. We're about ready to release it to the public and our stakeholders for one more look. We would expect to come back to the commission probably first for a study session again in early fall, and then a second meeting, and then council to follow. So we think we're about 3 months out or so.
Okay. Is it possible when you do release that, I can get a copy of that?
Commissioner Aluski, absolutely. And what we'll do too is on our website, not only will we place a draft of that sign code, but we'll also put what we're calling an errata sheet, which is comments that we've got in the past, how we've intended to address those comments through the latest draft. We'll put them both
great.
on.
Yeah, because I'm part of the Government Policies and Affairs Committee and the Board of Realtors here in Maricopa and Weimar. And they're very interested in seeing sign ordinances and how that affects, both open house realtors, business in general. So they've asked me to get a copy.
Sure, Commissioner Aluski, we'll make sure you get a copy. And also, Weimar has been very much involved in our sign code update. We've got some context, so as part of our stakeholder list, they will receive a copy as well of the.
Oh, okay, probably Liz Recchi. She kind of.
I believe so. I believe that's the name. Yes, sir.
Great. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Patterson, no, we're, okay. Well, seeing, no, now you want to speak again. Okay, seeing no further action and no more comments from the commission, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned.